Alright, let's talk about a whore. By that I mean, the one and only, whore of Babylon. Please quote all of the verses in the book of Revelation, KJV, regarding the whore of Babylon. And then, provide a summary of all the verses. The description of the whore of Babylon is primarily found in Revelation chapters 17 and 18 in the King James Version, KJV. Here are the relevant verses. Revelation 17:1-6, KJV. 1 And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. 2 With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. 3 So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. 4 And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. 5 And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. 6 And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, and when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Revelation 17:15-18, KJV. 15 And he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples, and multitudes, and nations, and tongues. 16 And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. 17 For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. 18 And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Revelation 18:1-5, KJV. 1 And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. 2 And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. 3 For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. 4 And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. 5 For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Summary. The whore of Babylon is described as a symbolic figure representing a corrupt and idolatrous system that influences and seduces the nations. She is associated with a scarlet-colored beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman is adorned in luxurious attire and holds a cup full of abominations. Her name is written as Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. The metaphorical description suggests spiritual adultery and corruption, with the woman being drunk with the blood of the saints. The waters upon which the whore sits are interpreted as peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. The 10 horns, representing powers, eventually turn against the whore, fulfilling God's will. In Revelation 18, the fall of Babylon is proclaimed, emphasizing its judgment and downfall. The imagery suggests that Babylon has become a dwelling place for evil spirits. A call is made for God's people to come out of Babylon, warning them not to partake in her sins and to avoid the coming judgment. The sins of Babylon have reached heaven, and God remembers her iniquities. The overall theme is one of divine judgment on a corrupt and oppressive system. Is there reference to the whore of Babylon elsewhere in the Bible, KJV? The specific term whore of Babylon is unique to the book of Revelation in the Bible, and it is not explicitly used elsewhere in the King James Version, KJV, or in other biblical translations. The imagery and symbolism associated with the whore of Babylon are distinct features of the apocalyptic literature found in Revelation. However, there are passages in the Old and New Testaments that contain similar themes of spiritual unfaithfulness, idolatry, and judgment against wicked cities or nations. While not identical to the depiction of the whore of Babylon in Revelation, these passages share some common elements of spiritual waywardness and divine judgment. Examples include Jeremiah 3:1, KJV. They say, If a man put away his wife, and she go from him, and become another man's, shall he return unto her again? Shall not that land be greatly polluted? But thou hast played the harlot with many lovers, yet return again to me, saith the Lord. Ezekiel 16:15-16, KJV. But thou didst trust in thine own beauty, and playedst the harlot because of thy renown, and pouredst out thy fornications on every one that passed by, his it was. And of thy garments thou didst take, and decked thy high places with divers colors, and playedst the harlot thereupon. The like things shall not come, neither shall it be so. Hosea 2:2, KJV. Plead with your mother, plead, for she is not my wife, neither am I her husband. Let her therefore put away her whoredoms out of her sight, and her adulteries from between her breasts. While these passages address the metaphor of spiritual unfaithfulness using the language of harlotry or adultery, the direct association with the term whore of Babylon and the elaborate symbolism found in Revelation is unique to that book. The interpretation of such passages often depends on one's theological perspective and the broader context of biblical teachings. Am I to understand the whore of Babylon as a personality? Or is she a personification of a wicked city? The whore of Babylon, as described in the book of Revelation, is generally interpreted as a symbolic figure rather than a literal personality or individual. The symbolism is complex, and various theological traditions may offer different interpretations. Two common interpretations are: symbol of spiritual unfaithfulness. Many scholars and theologians see the whore of Babylon as a symbolic representation of spiritual unfaithfulness and idolatry. She is often associated with a corrupt and idolatrous system that opposes God and seduces people away from true worship. Personification of a wicked city or empire. Another common interpretation is that the whore represents a specific city or empire characterized by moral corruption, idolatry, and opposition to God. The description in Revelation 17 and 18 includes elements that resemble a powerful and decadent city. The interpretation of the whore of Babylon often depends on one's broader understanding of the apocalyptic imagery in Revelation. Some key points to consider. The whore is depicted as riding a scarlet-colored beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, which is associated with worldly powers and kingdoms. She holds a cup full of abominations, suggesting a seductive influence that leads people astray. The name written on her forehead, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth, emphasizes her symbolic and metaphorical nature. In both interpretations, the central theme is the judgment and downfall of a corrupt and opposing force in the cosmic drama presented in Revelation. While some may see it as a symbol of spiritual apostasy, others may understand it as a personification of a specific city or empire that embodies moral and spiritual corruption. The term waters in the book of Revelation is indeed used metaphorically in various instances. Here are the relevant quotes. Revelation 17:1, KJV. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Summary: in this verse, the waters are associated with the location where the great whore is seated. The metaphor suggests a place of influence or a multitude of people. Revelation 17:15, KJV. And he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples, and multitudes, and nations, and tongues. Summary: the angel provides an interpretation, explaining that the waters represent peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. The metaphor underscores the widespread influence of the symbolic location. Revelation 16:4, KJV. And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of waters, and they became blood. Summary: here, the rivers and fountains of waters are affected by the pouring out of a vial, resulting in a plague. The metaphor emphasizes a disruption or judgment on various sources. Revelation 8:10-11, KJV. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters, and the name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters, because they were made bitter. Summary: the rivers and fountains of waters are affected by a falling star, resulting in bitterness. The metaphor implies a calamity or judgment affecting various sources. In summary, the term waters in the book of Revelation is used metaphorically to represent locations of influence, multitudes of people, and sources that can be affected by divine judgment or calamity. The metaphor underscores the broader symbolic nature of the apocalyptic language in Revelation. Jesus Christ, in the book of Revelation, KJV, is compared to have a voice of many waters. You forgot to include that in my last request for all mention of the term waters. You are correct, and I appreciate the clarification. Here is the additional reference where Jesus Christ's voice is compared to many waters. Revelation 1:15, KJV. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. Summary: in this verse, the description of Jesus Christ includes the imagery of his voice being like the sound of many waters. This metaphor emphasizes the powerful, majestic, and authoritative nature of his voice, drawing a parallel to the vast and mighty sound of rushing waters. Is there similar metaphorical usage to Jesus Christ's voice being as the sound of many waters, in Revelation 1:15 KJV, and that of the whore of Babylon in Revelation 17:15, KJV, which describes where the whore sits? While both Revelation 1:15, describing Jesus Christ's voice as the sound of many waters, and Revelation 17:15, describing where the whore of Babylon sits, use the metaphorical element of waters, the context and symbolism are distinct. Let's examine each. Revelation 1:15, KJV. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. Summary: this verse describes a vision of Jesus Christ, emphasizing the powerful and majestic nature of his voice. The metaphor of his voice being like the sound of many waters conveys authority, strength, and a sense of awe. Revelation 17:15, KJV. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples, and multitudes, and nations, and tongues. Summary: this verse provides an interpretation of the waters where the whore of Babylon sits. The waters are explained as representals, multitudes, nations, and tongues. The metaphor here emphasizes the widespread influence and diverse populations under the influence of the symbolic location where the whore sits. While both instances use the term waters metaphorically, the meaning differs. In Revelation 1:15, the metaphor highlights the authoritative voice of Jesus Christ. In Revelation 17:15, the metaphor emphasizes the broad influence and multitude of people associated with the location of the whore of Babylon. The common use of the term waters in these contexts serves distinct purposes in conveying the characteristics of Jesus Christ and the symbolic figure of the whore of Babylon, respectively. I ask, in the book of Revelation, KJV, what happens to the whore after she is judged? The fate of the whore of Babylon after she is judged is described in Revelation 17 and 18 in the King James Version, KJV. Here are the relevant passages. Revelation 17:16-18, KJV. 16 And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. 17 For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. 18 And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Revelation 18:8-10, KJV. 8 Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death, and mourning, and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. 9 And the kings of the earth, who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, shall bewail her, and lament for her, when they shall see the smoke of her burning. 10 Standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city! For in 1 hour is thy judgment come. Revelation 18:21-24, KJV. 21 And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. 22 And the voice of harpers, and musicians, and of pipers, and trumpeters, shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman, of whatsoever craft he be, shall be found any more in thee, and the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. 23 And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee, for thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. 24 And in her was found the blood of prophets, and of saints, and of all that were slain upon the earth. Summary: after the judgment of the whore of Babylon, the 10 horns, representing powers, turn against her, making her desolate, naked, consuming her flesh, and burning her with fire. Revelation 18 elaborates on the judgment, stating that her plagues will come swiftly, including death, mourning, and famine. The city, identified as Babylon, is described as being utterly burned with fire. The kings of the earth, who were in alliance with her, lament her destruction. The imagery emphasizes the sudden and catastrophic nature of her judgment, leading to her complete destruction and removal. In the book of Revelation, KVJ, what is wine of her fornication? The phrase wine of her fornication is mentioned in the book of Revelation, specifically in the context of the description of the whore of Babylon. The relevant passage is in Revelation 17:1-2, KJV. Revelation 17:1-2, KJV. 1 And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. 2 With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. The wine of her fornication is a metaphorical expression representing the corrupting and seductive influence of the whore of Babylon. It signifies her deceptive teachings, idolatrous practices, and enticements that lead people away from true worship and fidelity to God. The term fornication in this context is used symbolically to depict spiritual unfaithfulness and idolatry. In a broader sense, the wine of her fornication symbolizes the allure and false pleasures associated with the worldly and immoral practices that the whore represents. It suggests a spiritual intoxication that blinds people to the true worship of God and leads them into a state of moral compromise and disobedience. The imagery emphasizes the negative consequences of spiritual unfaithfulness and highlights the corrupting influence of deceptive teachings and practices associated with the whore of Babylon. In the book of Revelation, KJV, the whore of Babylon sits on a scarlet-colored beast. Is this a distinct beast, or is it one of the aforementioned beasts in the book of Revelation? The scarlet-colored beast on which the whore of Babylon is seated in the book of Revelation is often interpreted as a distinct entity from the other beasts mentioned in the same book. This scarlet-colored beast is specifically introduced in Revelation 17. Let's examine the relevant passages. Revelation 17:3-7, KJV. 3 So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. 4 And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. 5 And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. 6 And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, and when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. 7 And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The scarlet-colored beast in this passage is described as having 7 heads and 10 horns, and it carries the whore of Babylon. The interpretation of this scarlet-colored beast can vary among biblical scholars and theological traditions. Some common perspectives include distinct entity. Many interpretations consider the scarlet-colored beast as a distinct symbol representing political and worldly powers that align with or support the whore of Babylon. It is often associated with oppressive and anti-God systems. Symbolic continuation. While distinct, some interpretations also see a symbolic continuation of the themes introduced by the previous beasts in Revelation, especially the 7-headed and 10-horned beast mentioned in Revelation 13. The scarlet-colored beast could represent a manifestation of the same anti-God forces. Regardless of the specific interpretation, the scarlet-colored beast is generally understood to represent worldly powers aligned with the whore of Babylon, embodying characteristics of opposition to God and persecution of the faithful. In the book of Revelation, KJV, it says, And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Are there cross-references to this title for the whore of Babylon? What are they? Summarize and make connections if possible. The title Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth is a distinctive description of the whore of Babylon found in Revelation 17:5, KJV. While there isn't an exact repetition of this specific title elsewhere in the Bible, there are related passages that provide context and understanding of the themes associated with the whore of Babylon. Here are relevant passages. Mystery Babylon's identification. Revelation 17:1-2, KJV. 1 And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. 2 With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Connection: the identification of Mystery Babylon as the Great Whore is closely tied to her influence over the kings of the earth and the inhabitants of the earth. Fall of Babylon proclaimed. Revelation 18:2-3, KJV. 2 And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. 3 For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Connection: this passage emphasizes the fall of Babylon and reiterates her influence over nations and kings. Similar imagery in the Old Testament. Jeremiah 51:7, KJV. Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunken, the nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Connection: while not identical, this verse uses similar imagery of Babylon being a cup making the nations drunk, reflecting the spiritual intoxication associated with Babylon. Harlotry as a metaphor. Ezekiel 16:15-16, KJV. But thou didst trust in thine own beauty, and playedst the harlot because of thy renown, and pouredst out thy fornications on every one that passed by, his it was. Connection: this passage from Ezekiel uses the metaphor of harlotry to describe unfaithfulness and idolatry, providing a background for the symbolism used in Revelation. These passages, while not direct repetitions of the title, contribute to the understanding of the Whore of Babylon's characteristics, influence, and the judgment pronounced upon her. The theme of spiritual harlotry and unfaithfulness is consistently associated with Babylon throughout these passages. Where in the book of Revelation, KJV, is the blood of the saints referenced and alluded to? The phrase blood of the saints is referenced in the book of Revelation, particularly in the context of the persecution and martyrdom of believers. Here are relevant passages where this phrase is mentioned. Revelation 16:4-7, KJV. 4 And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of waters, and they became blood. 5 And I heard the angel of the waters say, Thou art righteous, O Lord, which art, and wast, and shalt be, because thou hast judged thus. 6 For they have shed the blood of saints and prophets, and thou hast given them blood to drink, for they are worthy. 7 And I heard another out of the altar say, Even so, Lord God Almighty, true and righteous are thy judgments. Connection: the pouring out of the third vial results in the rivers and fountains of waters becoming blood. This is accompanied by a declaration that those who shed the blood of saints and prophets are receiving judgment. Revelation 17:6, KJV. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, and when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Connection: the Whore of Babylon is described as being drunk with the blood of the saints and martyrs of Jesus, emphasizing her role in the persecution of believers. Revelation 18:24, KJV. And in her was found the blood of prophets, and of saints, and of all that were slain upon the earth. Connection: this verse, associated with the judgment of Babylon, declares that in her was found the blood of prophets, saints, and all those who were slain on the earth. These passages collectively highlight the theme of persecution and martyrdom of the saints, with the shedding of their blood being a significant element in the narrative of judgment and the cosmic conflict depicted in the book of Revelation. The imagery emphasizes the suffering and sacrifice of believers in the face of opposition and evil forces. In the book of Revelation 17:16, KJV, what are these horns? Please quote. In Revelation 17:16, KJV, the reference to horns is associated with the 10 horns on the beast that carries the Whore of Babylon. Here is the relevant verse. Revelation 17:16, KJV. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. The 10 horns are part of the imagery of the beast that carries the Whore of Babylon. In biblical symbolism, horns often represent power, authority, or kingdoms. The 10 horns are often interpreted as 10 powerful entities or kingdoms that align with or support the beast. In this specific verse, the horns are described as turning against the Whore of Babylon, indicating a shift in alliances and a hostile reaction toward her. The symbolism signifies the complex and dynamic relationships between different political and worldly powers in the apocalyptic vision presented in the book of Revelation. So, the whore of Babylon was very horny. No, the term horns in biblical symbolism, including the book of Revelation, does not have a sexual connotation. In the context of Revelation 17:16, the 10 horns represent 10 powerful entities or kingdoms associated with the beast that carries the whore of Babylon. The use of the term horns in this context is a metaphorical way of depicting political or authoritative power. It has no relation to the modern colloquial meaning of horny, which refers to a state of sexual desire. When interpreting biblical symbolism, it's essential to consider the historical and cultural context, as well as the intended meaning within the framework of the biblical narrative. In the book of Revelation, horns are symbolic representations of strength, authority, or power, and they are not associated with sexual connotations. In the KJV Bible, where are some other references to horns as representing power or kingdoms? Horns are often used as symbols of power, authority, or kingdoms in various passages throughout the Bible, including the King James Version, KJV. Here are some examples. Daniel's vision of 4 beasts. Daniel 7:7-8, KJV. 7 After this I saw in the night visions, and behold a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, it devoured and brake in pieces. And stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. 8 I considered the horns, and, behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots, and, behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Interpretation: the horns in this vision represent kings or kingdoms, symbolizing political power. Daniel's vision of a ram and a goat. Daniel 8:3-8, KJV. 3 Then I lifted up mine eyes, and saw, and, behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. 4 I saw the ram pushing westward, and northward, and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will, and became great. Interpretation: the 2 horns on the ram symbolize the kings of Media and Persia. Zechariah's vision of 4 horns and 4 craftsmen. Zechariah 1:18-21, KJV. 18 Then lifted I up mine eyes, and saw, and behold 4 horns. 19 And I said unto the angel that talked with me, What be these? And he answered me, These are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. 20 And the Lord shewed me 4 carpenters. 21 Then said I, What come these to do? And he spake, saying, These are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head, but these are come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, which lifted up their horn over the land of Judah to scatter it. Interpretation: the horns represent destructive powers, and the 4 craftsmen represent agents of God's judgment. These passages illustrate the recurring biblical theme of using horns as symbols of power, authority, or kingdoms in various visions and prophecies. The interpretation of these symbols often depends on the specific context of each passage. Does Revelation 17:17 in the KJV indicate that God controls these horns? Please quote and explain. Revelation 17:17, KJV, states, For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. In this verse, the context is the collaboration of the 10 horns, symbolizing political powers or kings, with the beast that carries the whore of Babylon. The verse indicates that God has influenced or allowed the hearts of these powers to align with the beast, fulfilling his will and contributing to the unfolding of his divine plan. The key points in the verse are: God's sovereignty. The verse acknowledges God's ultimate sovereignty over world events. Even though the actions of these political powers may be driven by their own motives, God is portrayed as having a higher purpose and using their actions to fulfill his divine plan. Fulfillment of God's will. The collaboration and agreement among these powers are seen as part of God's plan, and they play a role in the unfolding of events as foretold in prophecy. Temporal authority. The authority and power of these political entities are subject to God's overarching plan. They may exercise their authority for a time, but ultimately, it is within the framework of God's sovereign will. This verse underscores the biblical theme of God's providence and control over human history, even when dealing with powerful political entities. It reflects the idea that, ultimately, God's purposes will be fulfilled, and human actions, including those of political powers, are within the scope of his sovereign plan. Given my last question, I take it that it's God's plan to make the whore of Babylon desolate and naked and flesh-eaten and burned with fire? Please quote and explain. The description of the fate of the whore of Babylon is indeed part of the prophetic imagery in the book of Revelation. The verse that specifically mentions the fate you described is Revelation 17:16, KJV. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. In this verse, the 10 horns, representing political powers or kingdoms, turn against the whore of Babylon. The symbolic language used here conveys the severity of the judgment and the consequences that befall the corrupt and rebellious system represented by the whore. Let's break down the elements. Desolate and naked, this signifies the destruction and complete vulnerability of the whore. She is left desolate, representing a state of ruin or devastation, and naked, symbolizing her exposure and inability to hide her corruption. Eat her flesh, this metaphorical language emphasizes a thorough judgment, suggesting a complete overthrow and consumption of the corrupt system. Burn her with fire, the use of fire as a symbol of judgment is common in biblical imagery. Burning with fire signifies a severe and purifying judgment, consuming everything associated with the corrupt system. The overall message is one of divine judgment and the ultimate triumph of righteousness over corruption. The dramatic and symbolic language used in Revelation conveys spiritual truths rather than literal events. The fate of the whore of Babylon is part of the larger narrative in Revelation, illustrating the consequences of spiritual unfaithfulness and the eventual establishment of God's justice. What are some other KJV Bible references which describe Babylon, particularly as a wicked place? Several passages in the King James Version, KJV, of the Bible describe Babylon, often in a symbolic or metaphorical manner, as a place associated with wickedness, rebellion, and idolatry. Here are some references. Isaiah's prophecy against Babylon. Isaiah 13:19-22, KJV. 19 And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. 20 It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. 21 But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. 22 And the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces, and her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. Interpretation: Isaiah prophesies the desolation of Babylon, describing it as a place uninhabited and inhabited by wild creatures. Jeremiah's warnings against Babylon. Jeremiah 50:39-40, KJV. 39 Therefore the wild beasts of the desert with the wild beasts of the islands shall dwell there, and the owls shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. 40 As God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah and the neighbor cities thereof, saith the Lord, so shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of man dwell therein. Interpretation: Jeremiah echoes the desolation of Babylon, drawing parallels with the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Jeremiah's description of Babylon's judgment. Jeremiah 51:37-41, KJV. 37 And Babylon shall become heaps, a dwelling place for dragons, an astonishment and an hissing, without an inhabitant. 38 They shall roar together like lions, they shall yell as lions' whelps. 39 In their heat I will make their feasts, and I will make them drunken, that they may rejoice, and sleep a perpetual sleep, and not wake, saith the Lord. 40 I will bring them down like lambs to the slaughter, like rams with he-goats. 41 How is she's hatch taken? And how is the praise of the whole earth surprised? How is Babylon become an astonishment among the nations? Interpretation: Babylon is described as becoming desolate, a dwelling place for dragons, and an astonishment among the nations. These passages illustrate the prophetic language used by the biblical prophets to convey the impending judgment and desolation of Babylon. The imagery often employs symbolic elements to emphasize the severity of God's judgment against a city or system that embodies rebellion and wickedness. Who are the Chaldees as described in the KJV Bible? Are they bad people since, according to the book of Isaiah, they are associated with Babylon? In the King James Version, KJV, of the Bible, the term Chaldees refers to the Chaldeans, an ancient people associated with the region of Babylonia, particularly in southern Mesopotamia. The Chaldeans played a significant role in the history of the Babylonian Empire, and their capital city was Babylon. The Chaldeans are often mentioned in the context of Babylon, and sometimes the terms are used interchangeably. Here are a few examples. Isaiah's prophecy against Babylon. Isaiah 13:19, KJV. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Interpretation: in this context, the mention of the Chaldees is associated with the glory of Babylon, emphasizing their connection to the powerful kingdom. Jeremiah's prophecy against Babylon. Jeremiah 50:1, KJV. The word that the Lord spake against Babylon and against the land of the Chaldeans by Jeremiah the prophet. Interpretation: Jeremiah prophesies against Babylon and the land of the Chaldeans, linking them together in the context of divine judgment. It's important to note that the use of the term Chaldees in these contexts does not inherently imply that the Chaldeans were bad people. The biblical narrative often uses geographical or ethnic terms to refer to nations or regions. And the moral evaluation of a group of people is typically based on their actions and adherence to God's commands. In the context of the prophecies against Babylon, the emphasis is on Babylon's rebellion against God and its role in oppressing God's people, leading to divine judgment. The Chaldeans, in this context, are associated with the broader Babylonian context rather than being singled out as inherently bad people.